What's going on, Southlake? This is Dr. Gonzo, and I'm here today in this fourth episode of the What's Going On Southlake show. Today, I've got the man himself, Coach Eric McDade from Southlake, Carroll ISD district. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great, Gonzo. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing on doing this. It's actually, as I explained to you off the show, that we're doing this with a lot of the leaders within the Southlake community. I had a chance of interviewing last time Sean McDade. I'm sorry, Sean. Oh God, I'm blanking on Sean's last name.
Duhan,
Mr. Duhan. I'm sorry.
Yes,
sorry, Sean,
no
if you're watching this. I was calling him Sean throughout the show. So, but any case, and so we had an opportunity to meeting with him, and he was really insightful. And I figured that you also, as being one of our leaders, that it would be really helpful to have you on the show. So anyway, for those of you that know or maybe don't know, Coach McDade, he is the coach for the varsity basketball team for Southlake. He also is the leadership and culture coach for the ISD school district, and also the athletic coordinator for the school. A lot of titles, and if you want to follow him, he's also has a really interactive and active Twitter account at Eric McDade 32 on Twitter. So if you guys want to follow him, I'll leave it at the end of the show so you can see and follow Coach McDade on his Twitter handle. But Coach, again, thanks for being with us. I'm really excited. So
yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. So where did you start? I mean, where were you born, raised? What's your background?
You know, I was born and raised in Denison, Texas, so about 75 miles north of Dallas, just close enough to where you could almost call me an Oklahoman. I think we even call ourselves Tex-Homan people. So, yeah, just up that way. And, man, just lived there my whole life and just had a great upbringing, and went on and went to college at Concordia University down in Austin. That's where I finished up by way of Grayson County Community College. And just different stops, and man, got into coaching and teaching, and this is I guess finishing my 24th year. So yeah, man, been doing it for a while.
So you went to school, and then what was your first job?
My first job after college, was actually in Round Rock ISD, where I coached at McNeil High School, coached JV basketball, freshman football, had a great mentor, just had a lot of just interesting, really, really good people that just kind of poured into me as a young guy. And man, just had some great stops along the way. Had some great stops along the way.
So how'd you end up in Southlake? What brought you to Southlake in the first place? Tell me that story.
Well, you know, it's kind of a really interesting story. My first three jobs that I had, they were 1-year stops. So I was at Round Rock, I was at College Station, and I was in Cleveland. And I just say it's everything is just it's meant to be. My final job, actually, when I moved to Cleveland, was to get closer to a young lady that is now my wife.
There you go.
Really, really good at everything. And then had a great opportunity to get my first head job at 26 years old, and newly married, and coached at Carroll High School for 5 years. Then opened up Mansfield Timberview High School.
Okay.
Was there for 5 years, finished off making a state run there, and then had the opportunity to coach at Duncanville High School for about 3 years there. And then it was something about this place. Kevin Ozzie actually hired me at Duncanville, and then shortly after being there, I think I was there for like a week. I got the job, and then he came to Southlake, came to here to Carroll, and never got a chance to really work with him. And then about 3 years later, we were able to get connected. This job came open, and it was just such a great place for a family. And gradually, my whole family's here. So my wife is also the assistant superintendent of student services. We've got a senior boy, and we got a freshman boy. So we are all Dragons. So
give her a shout out. You got to give a shout out to Mrs. McDade, right?
Because
it's a big part of the whole story.
And I say that I better make sure I get it right. I got to give a shout out to Dr. McDade.
There you go.
So, but no, man, it's great. We're Dragons, man. We love it. We drink the Kool-Aid. It is what it is. It's a great place.
So, and tell me about the leadership and culture coach. I mean, you're a very motivational speaker. I got to tell you, people have said in the past that I have the ability of doing that, but you put me to shame, brother.
No.
You have the gift, and let me tell you, it's a really good gift, and you use it for some really good things. Tell me how you got into the leadership and cultural coach phase of your professional life.
Well, this is something that's been about 10 years running. Had a great friend that was actually a good friend with my college coach that went to work with a group called the Flipping Group as a leadership consultant. And about 10 years ago, he got me into that and doing some things during the summers where we're going around traveling and working with teachers and students and administrators just on leadership processes. So it was Dr. Faltus's brainchild to have something that we could have in our district that utilizes those skills and those tools to enhance our teachers and our students and basically enhance the experience of the student so that when they walk across the stage, they got a smile on their face and they know that they've had a great educational experience. So this is just one little piece of that, I think, and it's just kind of ever evolving. So it's kind of cool.
So let's talk about COVID-19 here a minute, because it definitely has upended our society and our town and certainly the world. First of all, let me ask everybody at home, okay?
Yeah, everybody's good, man. Appreciate you asking. Hope your family's doing well as well, man.
Yeah, they're everybody's locked up, and I think that what we've learned is that, at least from my end, this is as close as retirement that I ever want to be at.
Wow, yeah.
The hell with it. I really appreciate being locked up at the house all the time, and I really like going out and enjoying, the outside too.
Yeah, it definitely leads to an opportunity to have a little stir craziness and things like that, and getting a little impatient with each other and just that whole dynamic, because as human beings, we're not used to this. Yeah. We're vibrant, moving people, and this is just different.
Yeah, well, so that's a good entry into the next thing. So tell me when you first started hearing about the COVID-19. I pointed out to Mr. Duhan yesterday that we were kind of in spring break mode, and whether it was before or during, it seems to have been the time that this whole thing blew up. What were you doing? What was going on in your life when this whole thing with the COVID-19 took place?
For us, obviously the backdrop is that we saw everything that was going on in the news in China and different things like that. But, when things are so far off, it's almost surreal. You don't think it's going to actually hit home, and as it started, the news reports started coming and things were starting to move and shake a little bit. We were actually in Norman, Oklahoma. For Bryson, my oldest, we were doing his college visit right before spring break. Mm-hmm. And so when we get back, it's during spring break and everything. We start getting this different thing. Janet is really on the edge of all this stuff because of her job and her role in the district. So as things started coming in, the reality started setting in that we may not go back to school after spring break. And is that going to be a week? Is that going to be 2 weeks? And then all the work that went in with our teachers, understanding that there was going to need to be some type of shift to online education. They got together, they were doing their social distancing, but they were really working hard to get this template into place for our kids, man. So I just saw a lot of the nuts and bolts of things that as they started taking place, and it was really surreal, to be honest. I was like, man, is this really happening?
So then so we're on spring break, and listen, the same thing happened with us. I have to give credit to my wife because she was keeping me on a play-by-play, almost on an hourly basis, and everything that started developing from school closings to, to what was going on in New York to certainly California. I told this in the last show, but we were in California. As soon as I landed, I got a text saying that our healthcare system didn't want us traveling outside of the state. Well, I texted that too late. And then over the next 2 days, we went to the Clippers and watched the Clippers and the Lakers play. We went to Disneyland. And so then when I get back, It's like, well, you were in a hot spot. So it really did change. But tell me, during that after the spring break week, what things that you have to do as a leader, as a coach of these young men, as to prepare them for what seemed to be and still is a revolving door of information that we get And how did you adapt during those early stages of the COVID-19 breakout?
I think the word that you used right there is adaptation. You have to be flexible. You have to understand first and foremost that we're people, and the basketball side of it, or the whatever it might be, the school side of it. There's got to be a lot of grace that goes into place, and the first thing you do is got to take care of the person. And so our first thing is to send out an email, some type of communication, just letting the kids know, hey, this is where we are. This is what we're going to be doing. And just, hey, we always say grace over grades. The sport part of right now, there's a lot of things that are bigger than those things right there. So I think that's the first thing, is just reality check, understanding, hey, look, here's where we are. Let's take care of the people first. And that's kind of what we've done. And, it's been a challenge. I tell you what, having two boys in the house, like,
Yeah.
they really do give you a pulse of what the kids are thinking. Because for a little bit, I was like, okay, we're gonna have to shift into this new way of doing things. But I'll be honest, it seemed like my kids thought it was an extended spring break, in a lot of ways. My oldest, he actually flipped his schedule. So he's up all night and then he's sleeping during the day. And so just trying to get them back on a normal schedule, that's been a challenge. So I know families are probably going through that all over our community.
Well, you hit it on the head, because even in our household, it at the beginning, it started as oh, well, yeah, the first week it was another week of spring break, right? Until the teachers and everybody in administration and education got kind of aligned and everything. But then after that, then now we got to do schoolwork, and
Yeah.
how do you balance that? And to your point, our kids, were an extended spring break. I'd hear them at 3 a.m. still up and on the
Yep.
cell phone. I'm like, what are you doing at 3 a.m.? Right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
I'm talking to somebody. I mean, we're chatting. I'm like, about at 3 a.m. I mean, what can
Exactly.
you do? I mean, at this time of day, and for those of you that are listening and watching, it's not even noon, and my kids are still in bed, kind of licking their wounds from whatever they did last night.
Right.
But yeah, it's from that point. So from an educational point of view, tell me the three things that you told the students when you communicated with them about what the reality was going to be in the short term and midterm about this.
As far as the perspective, as far as what was going to happen, because there was uncertainty, we didn't address it as far as like, hey, we're going to be coming back at this time or this time. We just looked at it right there at the present, in the moment. Okay, so guys, here's where we are. All right, and so what's it going to look like for your workouts? That's what we talked about first, and we chose to use it as an opportunity for them to be creative. We said, design your own workouts, have some fun with it. All you have to do at the end of the week is text your coach, whether you're your freshman coach, your JV coach, or the varsity coach, myself, and just let us know what you're doing. Let us know how you're doing, different things like that, and just really, really just try to be supportive more than anything else. It wasn't all about, hey, we're going to hold you accountable, making sure you're doing this, doing what you're supposed to be doing. It wasn't about that at all. It was about communication and giving them the opportunity to have some fun and take some ownership of what they were doing.
Okay, let me write down what you just said, because I'm going to talk to Diego right now, because I don't think that he's been doing a lot of workouts. So we want him.
Okay.
Tell me, who is it that he should send the video to? Because I'll get on him. Hey, they're really good at picking up the cell phone when it's their buddies, but when they have to do work, they're not that good at actually picking up the phone. So who is it exactly in JV that I have to talk to about?
So Diego needs to make sure he's emailing Coach Bates. He's got to make sure he sends that information to Coach Bates of what he's doing each day, and just let him know. That's it, man. And so it's been pretty good, and the kids have been responding. Some respond, some haven't. Yeah. Different things like that. And I'll be honest, we're all dealing with this in our own way. And the stressors of it and just the uncertainty, it's just our main job right now as educators and as coaches, as teachers, is to be supportive of our students and be supportive of our parents. And I think when we're calm and we're showing grace, that's going to help everybody get through this right now, because it's uncharted territory.
So I guess going now back to the question about how do you guarantee that your student athletes are actually maintaining, the level of discipline and workout. I hear the whole thing of them sending videos, and which is a good thing, because to a certain degree, you have to give them responsibilities. I'll tell you a story. I was just having a conversation with my oldest boy, who's actually going to TCU. Go Frogs, baby.
Is that my guy Julian?
Julian's going to TCU, baby.
Now you know Julian was in my team leadership class.
I know. He always spoke highly of you, and that's how I got to know you, because of the stories that I heard about you.
That's my guy. You tell him go Frogs, baby, go.
I'm gonna have him watch the video, because he's always intrigued as to who's actually on the show. But I'm sure awesome. He was the one who put us in contact. By the way,
well, I'm gonna tell you right now, that guy was a leader. What a great personality. Just an awesome kid. So I know you're proud of him, without a doubt. I know you're proud.
That really touched. And you know what? It's all mom. I'm just a guy around. I just provide something, right?
And I'm trying to remember. I don't remember or not, but I know Braylon and Diego know each other well. But I'm trying to remember if Diego was on one of my little youth teams at one time. I can't remember.
I can't recall either, but he speaks so highly of you. In fact, the other one that's keeping an eye out for you is actually Alex.
Okay.
This one. And
yes.
This is not actually, putting somebody in front of you, but I'll tell you that Alex, of the three, boys that I have, the most disciplined with regards to sports.
Is that right?
Alex.
Okay.
And I'm going back to what we're talking about in the interview about how do you guarantee discipline. And I'll tell you my story. I just had this conversation an hour ago with Lynn. Julian is a very passionate hockey player and just like you in basketball, he basically is very passionate about hockey, and he wants to play hockey when he goes to college. But if there's not a workout, if there's not something that drags him out of the house and do it, it's very difficult for young men at this age, unless you have that gene in you or that somebody has drilled that into your head, to have the discipline to continue to practice at a very high level, so that when they hit go, right, in a month, 2, 3, whatever that time frame is, you're ready and you're not behind the pack, because we're not the only ones, having that problem. I still have to get a hold of Coach Dodge.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've actually seen some of the things that he's doing. And talk about a disciplined guy, right? I can't get a hold of him. First of all, he doesn't seem to be able to respond. And I respect that. Okay.
Sure.
But let me tell you, there's a lot to be learned about that from our team sports. And how do we maintain in this era now of social distancing, when we're about to hit play? Because, you've heard on the ESPN that, the NBA is getting ready, right?
Right.
And so how do we take those examples of training them, keeping our kids fine-tuned? Because at the end of the day, Dragon Nation is a very competitive nation, right?
Yes.
And so tell me how do we get there? How do we use some of the resources that we have today?
I think that's what we're learning right now. I really believe this. When we come out of this, there are going to be so many different avenues and so many different things that we've done during this pandemic that's going to affect our world. I always reference back to the point where, in order for a person to take steps forward and to improve, they always need a reference point. Whether your reference point, Michael Jordan's reference point, probably a lot of people say, was he didn't make his varsity team when he was a sophomore. That becomes a reference point. And so all of a sudden, my failure, or take 3, 4 weeks, 6 weeks where I don't have something that I wish I would have had. And so I had a friend down in Houston. I said, man, hey, what are you going to do with your team? I said, are you going to send them workouts? What are you going to do? He said, you know what I'm really going to do? He said, I'm going to send them out a question each week. And all I want them to do is just answer the question. I said, what's your first question you're going to ask them? He said, what do you miss most about school or about basketball practice? Or what do you miss most before all this happened? And so that creates a reference point. And so once we have that reference point, then I think things start, discipline, things like that starts getting enhanced. That's what I believe. I think sometimes when things are taken away, or sometimes our failures, shortcomings, whatever it might be, that creates that discipline that we need to be successful. I think we all have those stories in our lives.
I'll tell you, and I'm having, admittedly, right now kind of the same problem as a leader in the hospital, trying to figure out how do I reach out to, create the same organization in a completely different world that I had before the COVID-19 hit. We used to have department meetings. We used to have, evaluation of cases. We had all these meetings, and we would conglomerate and come together and sit down in one location and do these meetings. But I'm actually having to figure out how is it that we create these new environments, right?
Yeah.
And workplaces that we deliver the same quality of behavior when we're going to hit play, right?
Yeah.
Than we were before the COVID-19 hit. And it's challenging, to be honest.
It is challenging. I had a doctor's appointment yesterday with Dr. Aurora. And so we did it on Teledoc.
Yep.
And, I'm sitting there and I've got my cuff and I'm taking my own blood pressure and reading my pulse, and she's the nurse is doing all the vitals right there online. And I sat there and I thought about it. I said, our world is about to be completely different when we come out of this thing. But I really believe it's going to be in a good way. It's going to be so many different avenues that we can take advantage of.
Totally agree. So I think that dives into the next topic that I wanted to ask you. What do you think is going to happen in the future? Are we going to be, you think we're going to be completely doing this, or we're going to be some hybrid of this, or we're going to go straight back to traditional models of education and teaching?
I think now you really got to understand me. I am a huge sci-fi fan. So I love Star Trek, Star Wars, all these things. So I really believe it's going to move us that much more into the future where, like what we're doing right now becomes a norm, where, it's nothing to do video conferencing. It's nothing for a basketball coach to have a virtual meeting with his team at 6:00 and they're at home, with their families, taking care of homework, different things like that. So it saves time. I think we're still going to have the advantage of the personal touch, because I think just as people being around each other, you can never replace that. The organic part of that right there, where we glean off of each other, man. We feed off of each other. So I think that'll never be replaced by technology. But I think we're just going to have a hybrid, and it's going to be an exciting new world that we're going to be venturing into.
Well, you hit on the head. You probably know Chad Johnson from Higher Goals.
Yes.
Chad is actually the lead coach for the Higher Goals team that Alex plays out of, and he did something that early on, about 2 weeks ago, I thought it was incredible. And these are 12-year-old kids, right? He had learned about ZoomUs, and this is not an ad for ZoomUs.
Sure.
ZoomUs doesn't pay us, just in case.
Okay.
But he did actually log on to ZoomUs, and then had each kid log on to ZoomUs from their home. And he talked about with with the team, basically, about how they were going to move forward, what were the expectations. And I want to say that every week he does hold a team meeting. And I was like, that is just brilliant, right?
That's
because
awesome.
he's done away with the barrier. Right now, it's not they're waiting. And he has actually put some expectations onto the kids to at least, keep on training and being out there and being – I think that, we're going easy on what we're asking them to do, because to your point, everybody's trying to acclimate to the current status quo. But there's no reason that we shouldn't really invest in diving into it and committing it and holding the expectations. This is just a classroom. The medium is the same, right? It's not.
Absolutely.
It's just now we're not sitting in the same place. In fact, I'm going to give you another trick. You can actually, if you open up, if you're the host, or I think that you allow everybody to do it, and you can actually chat with somebody on the screen. If you have a chat button there at the bottom, you can actually text, and nobody sees the conversation because it stays private between you and the other person. Just like you would do at school, right? Back in the day when you and I were doing it, you write a little note, pass it behind your back, right?
Absolutely.
Kathy was sitting behind you. She got the message, right? Now we got the cell phones, which, by the way, the teachers do a really good job of putting it on the wall and say nobody uses their cell phones. But the computer's still available, and you can chat on the computer even when you're not,
if you think about it, just how about this one? Here's a cool one. I'm here in Southlake, Texas, and I'm in my biology class. But, teachers are collaborating, and maybe all of a sudden we're in a Zoom or whatever you want to call it, meeting room with another class that's in California, and we're collaborating and working together. And different things like that. And, that I think the sky's the limit.
Well, and you hit on the head. And so one of the things that, that we do is that we actually, just like you have the leadership organization that you work with and do work for other schools with leadership, we have an organization in which we go to different hospitals and help them kind of set the standards and try to do some cultural alignment.
Sure.
And so I did this work for this hospital in Florida. I finished it probably in January, and I stayed in contact with the surgeons there, right?
Okay.
So as this whole thing with COVID-19 folded out, to your point, I reached out to them last week and I said, listen, we've got this meeting on Fridays. In fact, I didn't only do it with that Florida hospital. I also did it with a buddy of mine in Nashville. And I said, why don't we create a meeting? I have this meeting on Friday mornings. That's all the surgeons, and we discuss these interesting cases, how we're going to approach them. How would you do it, right?
Sure.
So what I did is I approached the surgeons on the East Coast, and I said, listen, why don't you join us? It's an hour later, but you can join us remotely. It's secure. We can lock the meeting up and do all the things to make it HIPAA compliant.
Wow.
And then you guys can actually participate in it. So to your point, it's happening already because we're doing it for our own surgical and medical education. We're joining with our partners in other hospitals. Wow. And then the cross-pollination happens naturally, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
So I think that's a brilliant idea. And I think that there's a reason why shouldn't you? Now, in a competitive environment like we are in sports, right? It's a different animal, right? You don't want to take your cards too much. You don't want to.
Exactly.
But it would be very interesting to have the opportunity of maybe watching and listening to say to a Coach K from Duke.
Absolutely, right.
And what's his style of coaching, and what drills does he do, and what does he impart on on his players and all that stuff?
Absolutely.
Totally a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
It is. And I think that, like the Harvards and the Yales and the Princetons that have all these online classes, I think that's going to become more and more common, except that the piece that has been missing is the live portion of it. You can always watch the recorded thing, but the live interaction and being able to ask questions and all that stuff, I think that would be brilliant. Okay, so moving forward in the future, what's your take on what's going to happen with basketball, the basketball season? How are we going to adopt anything that the NFL, and you've been listening to what's happening in the NBA. They're now thinking about testing everybody with the NBA having massive testing capability. And the cool thing about the NBA, as a parenthesis, is that they're serving as a framework of what all these major sports are going to have to do come the fall, right?
Right.
So what's the vision for the athletic department, especially for the basketball? How we're going to manage this whole thing to try to get our lives back to a little bit close as normal as we can?
I think the biggest thing is just trying to get the connection back with the kids, get them back on the floor. That's what they're wanting more than, probably more than anything else. And sports is so social. We're in a very competitive environment, but the kids want to be around each other. My senior yesterday, he just said, I was teasing him. I said, yeah, you probably miss seeing the girls or different things like that. He said, you know what I really miss? And I said, what's that? He said, I just miss being around my guys, my buddies, and he talked about one friend. He said, this buddy of mine, he said, he's like a caged animal. And I said, Bryson, what do you mean? He said, he needs people. And, I think all of us, we need each other. And so when we get back together, it's take care of each other first. And I think the creativity, we have so many bright minds, especially with the UIL, our governing body here in Texas, that they're going to put out a plan. There's going to be a plan in place as to what we're going to do. And I think the sky's the limit. I heard Bob Huggins for West Virginia basketball coach, and he was talking about just creative off the top, just what does it look like when NCAA comes back next year? And probably one of the most creative ideas I've ever heard. He said, what if we picked up and we started off with our conference tournaments where we left off? And we played the NCAA tournament at the very beginning of the season. And so last year's NCAA tournament will be played. And the seniors, they're still eligible when we come back. once the NCAA tournament is over, then we resume into maybe an abbreviated regular season for the next season after that. And I was like, you know what? That just proves that there's probably not a set answer, but any answer, as creative as we can be, will probably be some awesome solutions that are going to come for sports, because our society needs sports, and we're just in a different spot right now.
Yeah, and I think that the major thing that we're struggling with as a society is that it's such a social sport, from the players on the court to the fans on the stands, right? How do you
Absolutely.
replicate that in a safe environment, at least
I
in
know.
the short term, right? Because I'm my mind goes to, okay, and this is the doctor speaking, right?
Sure.
Okay, the NBA is actually potentially enacting something that they're going to have testing for all the players, so that first we make sure that each team is safe. Because what we don't want is, in the short term, the transmission of a virus or something that could then go back home, and then they're trying to figure out how to make it as, and I hate using the word, but sterile as possible, so that there's no cross contamination.
Sure.
It's not like back in the day when you and I were growing up and watched Magic Johnson reveal that he had HIV, right?
Right.
This HIV, society and leaders and cultural leaders and all that stuff proved that it wasn't that communicable.
Right.
But this thing is. And so how do we protect not only the players, and I'm using 5 digits to represent the players, but the players from actually then, passing off something, to each other, which then each individual will then take home to their nucleus, right? So how do you something needs to be done to prevent that happening. And I'm not going to profess knowing what's going to happen, but if I think that a shot or a vaccine is not going to be available for another 18 months, then these short-term solutions are going to be just short-term until the vaccine comes in and you can guarantee that people at least have some immunity and you diminish the risk. Yeah. But I wonder how, because you hear it at the basketball level, but in the public school system, we don't have the dollars to test every kid.
No. It's just like, that's what, I watch my wife every day. She sits on a conference call with the county or with the state or government, whatever it might be. And I think we're all in the same situation right now. We're just trying to figure it out, and it's just, like we said, it's uncharted, it's different, it's new, we're not sure. And like you said, if that's 18 months down the road, what's this going to look like? That's the reality of it.
So let me ask you, how's this affected Eric McDade as the man, Eric McDade as the leader, Eric McDade as the father, and as a coach? What lessons have you realized from this whole experience so far that you can share with us?
I think it just brings us back to just the reality of the family. The one thing that I've said this for a while, is that our lives, we get so busy and we get going so fast, and we get in this habit, and it's almost like the hamster that's turning the wheel, and we're going. And a mentor said this to me one time. He said, a tire spins the fastest when it's stuck in the mud. And sometimes all the activity that we were doing beforehand, how much of it was really necessary? How much was it just to go because we were just that type of people and organic? That's just what we did in our habits. Being with my family in the house and being around each other has probably been one of the more rewarding things that I could say. Just being here. And I had a friend tell me this right here, and I think one day I'm going to write a book, and the book is going to be titled, "Don't Stop Climbing the Stairs." We get tired, we come in, Bryson goes to his room, Braylon goes to his room, Janet's doing her thing. I may be downstairs, and those stairs are right there. And I'm too tired to climb up those stairs and go interact and see what's going on with my family. This slowing down time right now, we're going to get through it. We're going to be okay, but don't stop climbing the stairs. Take care of each other. you know, you take this as a blessing and just, man, just hone in on being a family. We don't have to have all the solutions now. We're gonna be okay. We've got a lot of bright minds, and we got a tremendous culture and community. We're gonna be fine. But love on your family, love on those kiddos, hug your wives, just let them know that you love them. That's what I've learned more than anything else.
That's awesome, Coach. So just as closing remarks, what do you want to tell Dragon Nation?
Hey, Dragon Nation, here's what I want to tell you. Keep leading. Don't stop. Remember this right here. The power of one. You can make a difference. Go Dragons.
That's awesome. Thanks, Coach McDade. Well, you heard it right here at What's Going On Southlake. That's Coach Eric McDade. You can follow him on Twitter, on his Twitter handle, Eric McDade 32 on Twitter. Coach, thanks so much for being here. It was really good. And be well, be blessed, and take care of yourself and that beautiful family.
Thanks, Gonzo, man. Appreciate you having me.
And Dragon Nation, thanks so much for watching. This is What's Going On Southlake. Dr. Gonzo signing off for you guys. See you in the next one.